It's Wednesday, the 10th of July. I'm Anthony Davis. He's Ron Filipkowski. This is Uncovered, where we uncover the MAGA propaganda that is not covered enough by the mainstream media. Ron, we've got lots to talk about. I first, though, want to kind of deal with the Joe Biden elephant in the room issue, and that is that, he's now put out a statement, effectively. He sent a letter around to all of the Democrats saying, I ain't going anywhere. And, that is he's the president. I'll just read it. He said, "My fellow Democrats, we have the record, the vision, and the fundamental commitment to America's freedoms and our democracy to win. The question of how to move forward has been well aired for over a week now, and it's time for it to end. We have one job, and that is to beat Donald Trump. We have 42 days to the Democratic Convention, 119 days to the general election. Any weakening of resolve or lack of clarity about the task ahead only helps Trump and hurts us. It's time to come together, move forward as a unified party, and defeat Donald Trump. Sincerely, Joe Biden." I mean, he's not messing around, is he?
No, I mean, he's made it pretty clear, and he called into Morning Joe on Monday morning and said that he wasn't quitting the race. He seemed pretty angry and defiant, which I certainly can understand where he's coming from there. It's been interesting to really watch the big influencers like Stephen King, people like that, people like Rob Reiner even, a lot of very Jon Favreau, a lot of very surprising names who have been really loyal to Biden, coming out calling for him to step down, joining a lot of the people we talked about last week, the former Republicans. But the thing is, it doesn't seem like, the real issue is Congress is back in session this week and they've been out. So the question is, what are they going to do? What are the senators and the representatives going to do? Supposedly Mark Warner was organizing this group of senators that was going to meet with Joe Biden today. He canceled that meeting. So I think what we're seeing is a lot of the heavy hitters, the big names, after that meeting with the governors, where the governors all rallied behind Biden, have, like, especially Newsom, Whitmer, some key people, Wes Moore, Shapiro, some real leaders in the party amongst the governors, all unanimously supported Biden. So I think that took a lot of wind out of the sails of the people, trying to get him to step aside.
I think that the issue for me is that the debate is obviously what's kind of started all this. And, the debate, as we've discussed previously on this show last week, that it was an unnatural environment for Biden. It was not Biden's best day. He's admitted that, but he knows what he's capable of because he is being the president as we speak. I mean, he can do the job. And no one's ever questioned whether or not Biden is up to it because, in fact, if anything, people have been saying that Joe Biden's probably the most effectual president that the United States has had in decades, if not forever. So doing bipartisan deals with a party that doesn't want to do anything bipartisan, I mean, it's pretty impressive. Yeah. So that's kind of the elephant in the room, isn't it? It's like, trying to get rid of the best president ever just because he's a bit crap on the public stage.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. You don't hear any of the critics say, we want to get rid of Biden because we don't think he can continue his legislative agenda. We don't think he can get things done. That's not the criticism. The criticism is, we don't think he can beat Trump. We don't think he's up to this task. So a lot of it is very defensive and fear-based rather than offensive.
But they're wrong, though. They're wrong. And I think the reason they're wrong, and you can confirm this as a former Republican, is that I'm in London at the moment for my sister's wedding, and I was talking to a relative who's a lifelong conservative, and he didn't know who to vote for last time. He's got this problem which a lot of conservatives have got, which is where they are conservatives, but they can't vote for Donald Trump for all the reasons that we know, including him being an insurrectionist and all that stuff. So he said to me, I'll vote for Joe Biden, but I won't vote for Kamala Harris.
I have heard that from a lot of people that are moderate voters. I've seen that. I've seen that take a lot. So that's always the question is if you replace Joe, who do you replace him with? To me, like the only when you look at it from the campaign, because if you didn't choose Kamala, then you would have to release all the campaign money back to all the donors, $200 million in the bank, and start over. So that's why I say, like, if you pick Kamala, that doesn't have to happen. But then the question is, okay, that would satisfy the base of the party to do that, but would it bring in anyone outside the Democratic base? Let's face it, Biden brought over a lot of people like me, a lot of former Republicans, a lot of moderate voters who never would have voted for a Bernie Sanders or a Kamala Harris, let's say. And I said that in 2020. I said, I don't know that any of the other Democrats would have gotten as many Republicans to cross over. So Biden has been very adept at unifying and keeping the base together while bringing in those moderate voters. The only question is, can he do it again? Well, the real question is can anybody else do it better?
But Biden is an old white guy, and that's what they want. It's as simple as that. There are elements of racism and misogynism built into the reason why people don't want Kamala Harris. And I'm not talking about all people. I'm talking about the type of independents and fiscal conservatives like my relative who feel that they'll choose Biden because he looks like them. And that is very important. This is America we're talking about. It is not an equal society. It is not a place where, Obama's ascension to the role was an anomaly. Like, I can't see that happening again anytime soon. And so I would much rather Biden did it, won it, did a year, and then handed over to Kamala.
To your point, last week we talked about the fact that it seemed like the common theme among the people calling for Biden to step down was former Republicans widely doing that. And they have been joined, to your point, with Democrats who are largely white and wealthy. I mean, the elites that Biden was talking about on Monday on Morning Joe, complaining about the elites of the party calling for him to step aside. And that's who he's talking about. He's talking about a lot of the people in Hollywood and some of the elected officials and some of the business people and stuff like that. So, but again, the common theme is always nobody's expressing dissatisfaction with Biden or the Biden administration or the policies. They're just paranoid. They're thinking that he can't win, that he's not up to this. But, another point that we should make, which is, what has Biden done since the debate versus Trump? Let's look at that. Biden has done in the last 10 days, 18 live events, 18 events. And some of them were outside where he's in a suit and it's hot. And Trump has done nothing. Trump has played golf. I've documented he was golfing yesterday. He's golfing today. He's golfing the 2 day, every day. And so he's holding his first rally since the debate tomorrow, since the day after the debate. Where is it? It's on his golf course. It's at his golf course. So he's taking a break. Okay, I'm going to play 18 holes and step off in my golf shoes and do a little speech at the country club. That's what Trump's doing.
The networks should be ashamed of themselves. And I include the press as well. The New York Times and all the major legacy networks falling for this trap, this propaganda, which I'm sure Russia have got their fingers all over, not to mention all these, white Christian nationalists, the kind of keyboard warriors, trying to generate negative energy about Joe Biden. When the other guy is an insurrectionist, is a climate denier, is a rapist, is a fraud, is a thief, is a grifter. It's like none of that seems to matter. All we're going to worry about is the old man because he looks like he's frozen when he's standing still watching something, going on at an event when everybody else is dancing. It's almost like people have completely forgotten their senses. And it's American democracy that's hanging by a thread here. This is not some reality TV show, and yet the media have entirely dropped the ball, and they are doing exactly what they did in 2016.
Yeah, we saw this again yesterday. I'm sorry, not yesterday. It was Sunday over the weekend with the Washington Post. I mean, New York Times has been bad. and the common theme again these are largely Northeastern based media companies with Northeastern based people that are doing this. New York Times has been bad, but the only exception is Atlanta Journal-Constitution. That's the only major newspaper I can think of outside the Northeast that's called for Biden to step aside. But Washington Post on Sunday ran a story that Ted Lieu, this made me really fall out of my chair. I was shocked that Ted Lieu supposedly called on Biden to step aside on a conference call. And I was like, I said to the guys, at Midas, I said, wow, that's like big. Like Ted Lieu is about as loyal as you can get as far as to Biden. Turns out it was an erroneous report. They had the wrong person on the conference call. They were identifying somebody else as Ted Lieu, and they since took down the story. But for most of the day on Sunday, Washington Post was saying Ted Lieu called for Trump to resign. How do you make that mistake right now?
The Democrats are united. They recognize that Joe Biden is a great candidate, and especially paired with Kamala Harris, it covers all bases. And I'm pleased that she is now starting to come out and make a bit more noise, because I do think that she's excellent. And I personally would love to see her as a future president. I think she'd be brilliant at it. But I am just aware of American culture and systemic racism that prevents her from getting that opportunity at this moment. And because so much is at stake regarding freedom and democracy and your right to ever vote ever again, you have to go with the person who is most likely to win. And sure, catapulting in Gavin Newsom or anybody else would be interesting, but it would not seal the deal in the same way that a legacy politician such as Joe Biden is able to do.
And the other thing about Kamala here that people don't really think about, that I didn't really think about it until it was brought up to me, which makes a lot of sense, is you're going to have a problem with Jewish voters if you have Kamala at the top of the ticket, because her position on Israel has been a little bit different than Joe Biden's, and it has been over the many years. She's not been as strong a supporter of Israel as Biden. So when you do a move like that, those Jewish voters who are already a little bit, I guess you could say, annoyed a little bit at Biden for supposedly not giving Netanyahu a blank check, I don't think that they would be really that happy about replacing Biden with Kamala at the top of the ticket right now. So you have other problems that causes, that people don't think about.
Yeah. It's also hard, I think, for people to know what is true and what isn't true. I actually got asked to go on a British news network the other day to talk about, is Biden going to be stepping down? And I was just like, well, where did you get that from? Like, where did you, as a news network, get the news that Biden was going to be stepping down, or that it was even a thing? Like, why are we discussing it when he has said that he isn't, and his surrogates have said that he isn't, and the only people that says that he is, or should, are people who are not Democrats? So why are you running the story? And, I'm not very popular with some of these networks for that very reason. Tom Fitton is another of these people that has claimed that Biden is resigning or was due to resign on Monday. We have a quick clip of him kind of making this claim. Let's take a look.
When I reported this week that I was hearing that President Biden was going to resign from office on Monday, I haven't seen anything to suggest that what I'm hearing is wrong.
Tell us the story behind this and Judicial Watch.
Yeah, so, Tom Fitton, people love to make fun of his clips because he always likes to pose with his biceps, and he wears shirts that are way too small for him. So a lot of the, people goofing on Fitton is over his wardrobe.
I get the same. It's
his wardrobe selection. You get the same thing. You're rippling bicep.
Yeah. Why is he always wearing a tight t-shirt? Yeah.
It's a problem a lot of us have,
Yeah.
But Fitton seems to like to make his biceps, a prominent feature of his clips, so he runs Judicial Watch, which he's run for about 25 years. It was started by a guy named Larry Klayman, who's a lawyer And he hired Fitton to be like his right-hand man, and Fitton ended up ousting him, and they had a lawsuit against each other, and big story. But basically what Judicial Watch has done for the last 3 decades is file blizzards of Freedom of Information Act requests every time there's any kind of controversy, like say Trump, gets indicted. They will file 50 or hundreds of Freedom of Information requests on the DA's office in Atlanta. That's what they do, and he's not a lawyer. He doesn't have a law degree, so he has other lawyers working underneath him. And so the other interesting part, and so that's all they do. He just generates fake stories. You can Wikipedia, Judicial Watch, and you'll see one conspiracy after another that they have been behind, because they get these documents with these requests, and then they put out false information based off these documents. And that's what they do. So the question is, where does their funding come from? That was a question I always had, was, are they getting a lot of grassroots funding, small donations? No, they're largely funded by a small handful of super wealthy people that are writing big checks to Tom and his team. And that's what they do. So all they do is generate these fake stories, like him going on there claiming he has sources close to Biden who say he's going to step down on Monday. Well, obviously that did not happen. The opposite happened. But then he's just on to the next conspiracy the next day. So that's what these guys do.
It's a sad indictment of where we're at, that people can't see the bigger picture regarding the safety and security of America, of its elections, and it's on the world stage, of course, because, I think people now understand quite how serious the threat of Donald Trump and Trumpism and Project 2025 and the courts, the infiltration of the courts and the judiciary and everything. I think people realize the stakes now. They saw the insurrection last time. They recognize that the next insurrection, which is, some argue, is kind of already ongoing, is going to be worse. And yet they're still like, yeah, but Biden walked in the wrong direction. And it's like, be careful what you wish for, because, America will get what it deserves if you take your eye off the ball.
You're right. And the other interesting thing is, like Stephen Miller has followed this exact playbook. When he left the Trump White House, he set up this shell group called America First Legal, and is doing a lot of the same stuff that Fitton does, and is, again, a non-lawyer. So he's just following like the same playbook as Fitton, although he's doing a lot of different things. His big thing is, discrimination against white people, but it's a similar playbook. You set up, you're not a lawyer, you set up the shell corporation, you hire lawyers, and then you just start filing all this nonsense to get publicity and get on TV. And by the way, almost all of Judicial Watch's lawsuits go nowhere. They get tossed out. That's not the point. The point isn't for them to work. The point is for them to generate publicity and raise more money.
Let's talk about Trump's latest scam, which is pretending that he has any knowledge of Project 2025. He's been posting about it. What did he say? He said, I don't know who they are. And I don't know anything about them, and I don't agree with some of the stuff they're saying. So it's like, well, which is it? You don't know who they are, and you don't know what they're about. So how can you disagree with what they're saying if you don't know what it is and you don't know who they are and what it's about? It's like, it is so, his posts are so childlike, so naive, so ridiculous.
I mean, it would be one, when he said this, I was just shocked, when he came out and posted that. Because if he was doing this for like Club for Growth, which is like a sort of anti-Trump Republican group, and saying, well, I don't know any of those people, they don't represent me, I would get that. Like, I understand that. But this is a group, Heritage Foundation, that is so intertwined and connected with Team Trump and the Trump campaign. I mean, the people who came up with this, first of all, Trump spoke at Heritage a few months ago. And the guy, the architect of it, Kevin Roberts, he singled him out by name on 2 separate occasions and praised him and his work. One of the other principal authors of Project 2025 is John McEntee, who's right. One of Trump's right-hand man. He was in charge of White House personnel. for the Trump White House in 2020. So, and he will be again if Trump gets back in. So he, as we'll see in this clip, he was bragging about how the Trump administration was going to embrace 2025 and implement it with Steve Bannon. But now Trump is saying he doesn't even know these people. These are some of his closest associates to his campaign.
But he didn't know Stormy Daniels either, and he didn't know Jeffrey Epstein either, and he didn't know any of these people. You know, this is the issue, isn't it? It's like, nope, not me, never seen her before in my life. E. Jean Carroll, never heard of her, never ever heard of her. George Papadopoulos.
When he got indicted, he says that I think that's the guy who just got us coffee.
Okay, let's take a clip of Trump's senior advisor and former appointee John McEntee, who helped draft Project 2025, explaining to Steve Bannon how Trump plans to implement the plan immediately after taking office. Here it is.
Tell us what you're doing, Harris. You two are now working together. These guys have come up with the plan that on the victory, the third victory, the second term, we hit the deck plates runner, right? There's 4,000 appointees by a president, 4,000 to run the entire government. 1,000 of those, I think, have to be Senate confirmed. But 3,000 can start work day one. Walk through what you guys are doing. I know, and I keep asking, do you work for Johnny or does Johnny work for you, right?
I definitely work for John. So what we're doing with Project 2025 is we're recruiting the MAGA America First Republicans right now so that we can take D.C. by storm in 2025. We're not going to go in like we did in 2017, where the establishment took over and co-opted much of the personnel of President Trump's administration. We're more prepared this time. We're recruiting grassroots conservatives, and we want all of you, if you want to serve in the next White House, next State Department, next Pentagon, we want you to sign up. Tell your sons, tell your daughters, tell all your friends. It's project2025.org.
So, Johnny, okay, you heard that? If you guys want to serve, you've got to get engaged now. You've got to be involved now, because one of the big parts of this is networking. It's not just training people up, but those networks that we do with grassroots organizations, with other organizations. Walk through, tell me what the plan is.
So we're collecting resumes. We're getting as much information as we can now to save the transition time on the back end. As you know, when a president wins, or president-elect wins, things happen very quickly, and you have a short amount of time to staff an entire administration. It's also looking beyond the 4,000 and what we can do with the bureaucracy itself. So we're thinking of creative policy things as well that will integrate with this.
Well, hold it. When we talk about that, let's talk about schedule. I mean, is there going to be a plan in place to start to take apart the administrative state?
There has to be, and yes, there will be. The next president, if President Trump gets back in there, he needs to reorient the government that's in a way that hasn't been seen since Franklin Roosevelt did it with the New Deal. We need to gut these agencies. We need to start from scratch. We need to make a new government, essentially, because the one that we have now doesn't work for conservatives. It wasn't made for us. It's built against us. So we have to go back to the drawing board with these agencies.
Johnny, you...
Ron, I think I've worked out what the issue is with Trump and Project 2025, and that is that he doesn't want to think, or anyone to think, that he is not in charge of everything all the time. And that the idea that there's this other group that are doing all this planning and administration, it's kind of undermining his authority before he's even won the election. Do you think that's got something to do with it?
That's got everything to do with it, because that's what set him off, was that Kevin Roberts, who's this kind of shadowy figure, who's the head of Heritage, who sort of doesn't do a lot of TV. Once Project 2025 started getting a lot of attention in the last few weeks, he started doing TV interviews, and he started saying some crazy shit, some stuff that, like, I'm sure Trump looked at it and said, why are you saying the quiet parts out loud? Only I'm supposed to do that, So I think that he gave some interviews that really he came across as basically a fascist and straight up Nazi. And the Trump campaign was like, we can't associate ourselves with this guy. But the point is, what you just saw, those two guys, and that clip was from last year, those are Trump's guys. They're going to be senior officials in the Trump, staffing the Trump administration, who you just saw if he wins. So for him to disavow these people is nonsense. The other part of it is Trump has this Agenda 47 on his website that almost exactly tracks a lot of the proposals in Project 2025. So no, this is all smoke and mirrors, and I hope that the media, the press, et cetera, is not going to let him get away with trying to claim that he has nothing to do with this.
The other thing is that Project 2025 is quite a lot of work. Aside from the 900 pages that they've put together in this kind of plan, you know, the actual plan itself that you can download and read and be horrified by, that there's a lot of people involved who've put in a lot of effort to do this. I mean, they're all far-right Christian nationalists with extremist views and a hatred of any non-white, Christians, or I should say Christian nationalists, which is their theme. But, Trump doesn't want to do any work. He never does any work. He's never written any policy, never even read any policy. And so there is going to be a kind of shortfall here because of that, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, you could ask him what's in it and he wouldn't know because he doesn't read anything. But what I did in my article that I wrote about this was I showed clip after clip of where Trump is saying at rallies exactly what's in Project 2025. Whether it's calling for the abolishment of the Department of Education, calling for overturning case law on separation of church and state, mass deportations, including deportations of spouses of migrants. So, yeah, I mean, we could go right down the line and show that things that Trump is saying on the campaign trail is in Project 2025. So coming from his own mouth.
It's just the name, I guess. If it was called Trump 2025, you might take more interest in it. But the fact that it's not got his branding on it, it must be very frustrating for his ego. Maybe that will change in time. Listen, we have to take a quick break, but I want to come back and talk about Trump grifting off of Independence Day as he did the other day, trying to flog those Bibles and a whole lot more. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. Nobody likes using a cheap razor. That's why you've got to meet Henson Shaving. They're a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer that has made parts for the ISS and Mars rover, and now they're bringing precision engineering to your shaving experience. If you're like 88% of men who experience irritation from shaving, you might be expecting the worst from each shave, yet Henson users have seen dramatic improvements. Henson Shaving's innovation comes from an interesting analogy. Think of razor blades as diving boards. The longer the board, the more it wobbles. The micro wobbles are what lead to more nicks and cuts. Henson solves this by minimizing blade extension, addressing the root cause of bad shaves. And it gets better. The razor has built-in channels to evacuate hair and cream, which makes clogging virtually impossible. The Henson razor works with standard dual-edge blades to give you that old-school shave with the benefits of new-school tech. Once you own a Henson razor, it's only about $3 to $5 a year to replace the blades. It's time to say no to subscriptions and yes to a razor that'll last you a lifetime. Visit hensonshaving.com/uncovered to pick the razor for you and use code UNCOVERED and you'll get 2 years worth of blades free with your razor. Just make sure to add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com/uncovered and use code UNCOVERED. Let me tell you, if there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after drinking, it's with ZBiotics. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. ZBiotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and then you'll feel your best tomorrow. Vacations, weddings, birthdays, and reunions, there's so much going on. Get the most out of your plans by stocking up on pre-alcohol now. Go to zbiotics.com/uncovered to get 15% off your first order when you use uncovered at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/uncovered and use the code uncovered at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring this episode and our good times. And we're back. It's Uncovered. I'm Anthony. He's Ron. So I should say happy 4th to you, because I know we missed that together. And, you know, I'm British and you're an American. And obviously, you know, I surrender, whatever the process is. I'm not very good at reenactments. I'm sure you're better at that than I than I am, but I can do the song from Hamilton that the King says, if that, I'm sure nobody's really interested in that. But we should mention the fact that Donald Trump is grifting off of July 4th with this Bible, which we've heard is like a terrible version of the Bible, because it also includes the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, which is definitely there is no separation of church and state in that document. Let's take a look at his advert. Here it is.
This week, as we celebrate America's birthday, we remember 1776 and the commemoration of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence, a document you'll find and be able to read very easily in this special God Bless the USA Bible. The Declaration of Independence is here along with the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. It's a Bible that I encourage you to have in your home. I have it. A lot of my friends have it, and we all cherish it. I'd like to wish everybody a very happy 4th of July. Independence is a beautiful word here in America, and one we should be dedicated to keeping in this great, great nation.
I mean, does he think everybody is as stupid as he is? I mean, talk about a snake oil salesman. I mean, it doesn't really get worse than that, does it?
You know, he's always interesting on holidays. You know, you always look, him and Melania, how are they going to turn this holiday into an opportunity to grift and make money?
Yeah.
You know, and it's always interesting to watch the two of them do it, because Melania does it too. And of course, you know, to see their messages that they put out. Trump, we didn't post this, but he put out a typical deranged rant attacking everybody.
It was so offensive.
July 4th, right? But this one was released kind of like in the afternoon, which sort of, I couldn't believe it. Melania in the morning, what she did is she took her Christmas ornaments from last year, which obviously didn't sell very well, probably had a bunch left over, and she slapped a like USA logo on a Christmas ornament and was selling that on 4th of July and put that out. You know, it was her exact Christmas ornament with like a USA on it. And then Trump came out with this thing about saying, well, by the way, you know, how can I sell my Bible? Well, I'm going to remind people that the Declaration of Independence is in my Trump Bible. So what better day to buy one of my Bibles than today? And he talks about how he cherishes the Bible. But, you know, the other interesting thing is the biggest criticism that I heard from evangelicals about Trump Bible, and they don't complain about him often, but they do some, was exactly this, that he included these political documents into his Bible. And that was the main problem that they had with it. So that fact that he's emphasizing that is to make a few bucks is interesting.
I also think there was some amendments missing from the Constitution as well, right? Stuff about freeing the slaves, you know, that's gone, and voting rights, it's like, that's gone. But it really is two Americas. And that's why, again, you know, for somebody who is vehemently pro-democracy, as we all are at Midas Touch, to see the media dropping the ball on protecting the fall of US democracy in favor of a tyrant who is nothing more than a used car salesman, it's so depressing.
And,
you know,
and by the way,
it really is.
No media stories about that, about him selling the Bible on 4th of July.
No. There's so many things for the media to write about if they want to send Trump up, or, you know, take him down a peg or two, or And it's just like, I think people have become immune to his ignorance and to his racism and to his bigotry. It's become like a bit of a national joke, and it's not. It's deadly serious.
Yeah. Well, we talked about last week him claiming that electric planes would crash if it was cloudy. Like, there was no media stories on that, hardly any.
No.
And it's like they're almost like desensitized. They're like, oh, that's just Trump saying crazy shit again.
Yeah.
Like it's not important.
They're starting these hoaxes about. Wasn't there a hoax from was it Mike Lee? I think I've got a post here. Mike Lee suggesting that Biden was having a medical emergency on board Air Force One. What's the story behind that? That bullshit.
Yeah, so this is something just Laura Loomer put it out, and she just puts out stuff like that all the time. Just with no sources or whatever. She was asked about her source, and she said she wasn't going to disclose her source, who supposedly reported to her. Yeah, it's funny. All these really hardcore right wingers have all these sources in the Biden White House that are telling them all this stuff, supposedly, right? She has a source on Air Force One. But, so I look at something like this, and the interesting part to me is like, which normal, semi-normal people are going to latch onto this, or she had no source whatsoever. Nothing, just said this happened.
Yeah.
So then you have like a Monica Crowley who latches onto it, who's a nut job. But the question is like, what people outside of the crazed right wing fringe is going to latch onto it? Who did? Two people that I posted in that screenshot: Senator Mike Lee, who jumps onto it and amplifies it, and if you look below there, Elon Musk. Yeah. Make sure that his 140 million followers see it, along with everybody else in the For You where he pushes his stuff at them. So I mean that's who it doesn't take. It's the same thing with the Paul Pelosi conspiracy from the nut job in Santa Monica. Elon amplified that too. There's no conspiracy. They don't require any sources, anything. It's just, if it fits their narrative, they run with it.
I've been predicting for several weeks and months now that Elon Musk is very much in the tank for Donald Trump and will at some point kind of come out, all out for him. And then, we know about his own racism and his xenophobia and, based on his upbringing and his life. But there's another post here. Those who oppose this are traitors. And then he puts all caps traitors. What is the penalty for traitors again? And this was he was quote tweeting Speaker Mike Johnson saying, "The SAVE Act will safeguard our elections by ensuring only American citizens vote in federal elections." Just explain this voting bill that's happening this week, and why is Elon Musk kind of pushing this narrative?
First of all, this is a bill that's not going to pass. They know it's not going to pass. They already know that ahead of time. There's no Democrat that is going to vote for it in the House or the Senate, not one. So it's not going to pass. They could get it through the House, maybe, but that's it. It goes nowhere in the Senate. So this is one of those sort of messaging bills, so-called, where really the whole point of it is just to have something to run on, because the main thrust, according to Elon, is that this is a bill to make sure that migrants don't vote in the upcoming election, to prevent people who are not U.S. citizens from voting. Well, those laws already exist. Those laws are already on the books. It's already illegal for a non-U.S. citizen to vote in an American election. Those laws already exist. So this is not necessary. It's purely to try and score political points by saying, oh, Democrats, because there's other things in there besides that Democrats don't like, which are voter suppression type stuff to make it more difficult to vote. So that's why they're opposing the bill. But of course, what does Elon do? He says, if you don't vote for this Republican messaging bill that even the Republicans know is not going to pass, you're a traitor and guilty of treason and should be executed. That's what this man is. I mean, I'm thinking about, here comes a guy. He grew up the same time I did as a wealthy kid, white kid in apartheid South Africa. And now he's telling me that I should be executed because I oppose a bill. Like, I'm like, who the hell is this guy to come to the United States as a migrant and to have strings pulled for him? That's the other thing you think about. If Elon Musk was in Venezuela, whose dad was a car mechanic, he would be coming to the United States the same way these people are, because he couldn't have people who pulled strings and made it happen for him like they don't have. He had. So for him then to come here and get citizenship and then call for the execution of people who don't support a Republican bill. And this is a guy who's the richest man in the world, who owns a huge media company. So,
but he has no self-awareness.
To get more dangerous every day.
Musk exists in his own bubble, doesn't he? He has no self-awareness. He doesn't understand the concept of perception. He's painfully awkward and embarrassing a lot of the time, and yet he has these very far-right extreme views, and thinks that it's normal because of the bubble in which he grew up in. And that's the thing, and that's why I always say on the show, you've got to travel, you've got to see the world, you've got to experience how other countries do it. His experience, in contrast, is a bad one. To grow up in apartheid South Africa as a wealthy white person, there is an inbuilt prejudice there. And that's what, and he moved to Canada first, I think, then he came to the US. Let's talk about Ukraine for a minute, because as we know, Donald Trump claims that he can end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours or an hour, because he knows more about Ukraine than anything. And we all know that the reality is he would just hand a portion of Ukraine, whether it be the Donbass or something, over to Vladimir Putin and redraw the line with Crimea and say, okay, you can have this section as well. I mean, that's the way he would deal with it. And I think Zelensky knows this and therefore is now calling his bluff. And in an interview with Bloomberg, he actually said if Trump knows how to end this war, he should tell us today. And he said if Trump intends to abandon them to the Russians if he wins, he wants to know now so that he can prepare. Here's the clip.
If Trump knows how to end this war, he should tell us today. Because if there are risks to Ukraine's independence, if there are risks that we will lose the statehood, we want to be prepared for this. We want to understand whether in November we will have the powerful support of the US or will be.
Yeah, he's not stupid, Zelensky, is he?
No, he knows the answer. I mean, this clip was incredibly interesting to me on a lot of levels, because Zelensky has always been very careful not to take sides in any way in the American elections, even though he knows very well, as the whole world knows, he is much better off and his country is much better off with Joe Biden in there than Donald Trump, who's Putin's friend. But he can't say that. And he had a chance to weigh in on impeachment in 2017 on the quote unquote perfect phone call and chose not to, not to say anything about that. Because again, at that time, Trump was a new president. He can't cross Trump. And so here he is again in this position. But I think he's been careful up to this point not to say anything at all. This was the first time that he's made a statement about Trump. And, he's frustrated because Trump continues to say day after day he has this plan, but he refuses to say what the plan is. But Zelensky knows what the plan is. We know what the plan is. I mean, Donald Trump Jr. and people around Trump have said what the plan is. The plan is to cut off aid and to cede territory to Putin, or worse, or to hand over Zelensky or something like that. So we know what the plan is. And so this is what Zelensky is doing. He's basically frustrated and just saying, look, if that's your plan, come out and tell the whole world so we know. And I think what he's saying is, when he's saying, so we need to prepare, what he's saying is, he's talking to Europe. He's saying to the rest of the European leaders, look, if Trump wins, you're our only hope. Like, we're not going to be able to count on the United States. So you guys need to see this clearly right now. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, he is a strategist, and ultimately he's putting the Ukrainian people first, which is not something that some countries are used to. A leader actually putting the people first, normally putting themselves first. Tucker Carlson is claiming now that he's scored an interview with Vladimir Zelensky, isn't he? And yet this is being denied by Zelensky's people. He posted, "Looks like we've got the Zelensky interview. We've been trying for 2 years and with particular intensity after interviewing Putin in February. The point is to bring Americans much needed information about the conflict that's completely reshaping their country's position in the world. Coming soon, we hope." I mean, that's just bollocks, isn't it?
When he announced this last week, I was a little surprised that Zelensky would do it. But then I thought to myself, well, maybe he is agreeing to this because this is obviously the leader of the American far-right anti-Ukraine faction.
Yeah.
He obviously got humiliated by Vladimir Putin, Tucker did, in his interview there. So maybe Zelensky thought, this guy's a dope, and I'll school him even worse than Putin schooled him and show everybody. But my concern was that Putin's demanded that the interview be uncut, unedited, and I didn't trust Tucker to do that with a Zelensky interview. So that was my concern. But then the next day after Tucker posted that, the Ukraine government issued a statement and said they don't know what he's talking about. They never agreed to an interview.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely just pure propaganda. And also the fact that he says that the conflict that's completely reshaping their country's position in the world. I mean, that's not true either. And so he's trying to turn it into something that it isn't. Okay, we have to take another quick break, but I want to come back and talk about a former Sopranos actress who is gone full MAGA. We'll see what she's up to next here on Uncovered. I'm excited to tell you about Moink. That's Moo plus Oink. Moink is a meat subscription box company on a mission to fight for the family farm. They're located in rural America, run by an 8th-generation female farmer. Their animals are raised humanely, their employees are paid a living wage, and the quality of their product is better than anything you'll find in the store. And trust me, I've tried it. Unlike the supermarket, Moink gives you total control over the quality and source of your food. You choose the meat delivered in every box, like ribeyes to chicken breasts to pork chops to salmon fillets. Plus, you can cancel at any time. Keep American farming going by signing up at moinkbox.com/uncovered right now. And listeners to this show can get free bacon for a year. Yes, that's 1 year of the best bacon you'll ever taste, but for a limited time. Spelt MOINK box.com/uncovered. That's moinkbox.com/uncovered. We're back on Uncovered. I'm Anthony, he's Ron. There's been quite a few celebrities recently who've kind of come out for Donald Trump. Is it that they just can't get work in Hollywood, or that they've been cancelled, and so the only kind of market that will have them is the right and the far right?
Yeah, this is a funny story, and these posts always go viral with these actors, on social media, because it's so funny it's like the same pattern every time. Like Kirk Cameron also announced this week, who's a former child actor from the 80s, that he was leaving California and moving to Tennessee. And Scott Baio recently moved to Florida from California, Kevin Sorbo, like all these right wingers. So number one, they're claiming that they're all, fleeing California for better places like Florida and Tennessee, and then the other point is that they all claim that they were persecuted in Hollywood. That's another common theme, that the reason why they haven't been able to get work in decades is not because of their acting talent or lack thereof. It's because they're being blackballed because of their politics, right? Which is most of them never said a word publicly about being conservative until well after they have been out of work for a while. So that's the next common theme, which is to blame politics on them being out of work. So Yeah, and then to come out as like these right-wing supporters, these right-wing Trump supporters, it's pretty comical because they're all like, at this point, they're all like B-list people. And the third thing, common theme amongst all of them, is they all also claim that all of Hollywood, or at least half of Hollywood, is secretly Trump supporters. They won't name anybody because they say, well, I don't want them to get canceled the way I've been canceled. But I can tell you that half of Hollywood supports Trump, which is preposterous. I mean, you look at, none of them donate any money. They don't do any events. It's just, once again, it's like Tom Fitton claiming he has sources in the Biden White House. You know?
Well, maybe Roseanne Barr is half of Hollywood.
There you go. There's
She's
another
the
one.
other half. Right. Let's take a look at the clip. Here she is.
Half of Hollywood is voting for Trump. I have people writing me, PR people, agents, and I was dropped for not getting vaccinated in Hollywood completely by my agent, whatever. But a lot of people are finding my emails and coming at me saying, wow, I can't believe you're speaking out. Keep it up. And I have people whispering in my ear in like these super liberal parties, and they come and whisper in my ear like, thank you, just keep doing it. Please keep doing it. I'm voting for Trump.
I mean, I don't even know who that person is, but that's not the point. The point is that it's so obvious with the way these people talk that they're just making stuff up, that there really isn't this movement that they're describing. And I want to make that point about Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans generally, is that they are not as popular as they tell you they are. The whole thing is a confidence trick that sadly much of the mainstream media have fallen for. And quite rightly, regular people can fall for, because if they hear this stuff, they're like, oh, I don't know if it's true or not. It's not true. He is not popular. The actors aren't voting for him. It's just like, really? You think we're as dumb as that?
Rather than look at the obvious, which is these people all failed in Hollywood. They couldn't get jobs. They're out of work. They were either one-hit wonders or whatever. Then they look for someone to blame besides themselves. And then because what they see is that all of these washed up actors and entertainers become big celebrities in the MAGA movement and at Trump rallies and stuff. And they get invited on OAN like she was, or Newsmax. And suddenly they become kind of semi-relevant again by doing this. It's their only way of becoming relevant. And she now was a former Sopranos actress. She is now on OnlyFans. She has an OnlyFans account, and she's trying to promote that. That's what she's doing.
I mean, I was going to say how the mighty fall, but you've got to be mighty in the first place to kind of fall somewhere. The latest Biden intrigue. This is an interesting story that you posted online. A source familiar with Senator Mark Warner's thinking says the private meeting that he was trying to organize is no longer happening. Before I show the clip, just explain the backstory behind this, because it's kind of it's quite specific, isn't it?
Well, this was reporting that he was trying to organize a group of Democratic senators, and this was supposed to happen on Monday, where he was supposed to, walk into the Oval Office and confront Joe Biden with, I don't know, whatever it was, 8, 10 Democratic senators, whoever.
Yeah.
Although nobody else was out there saying anything. So look, if this had happened, if this had come off, that would have been a very significant thing. And supposedly we heard that somewhere between 25 to 50 House members were going to do the same thing later this week. I don't know if that's going to happen either, but yeah, Warner at the 24 hours before this is supposed to happen says it's not happening, and he doesn't appear to. What it seems to have happened is he was one of these guys that was charging up the hill with the banner, "Come on, guys, follow me," and then he got halfway up the hill and turned around. And there's nobody behind him. I think that's what happened to this guy. So.
This is something we're going to have to get used to, though, isn't it? That there will be a little bit of mutiny because, there's so much ego in politics, and people think either they can do a better job or that they know something that somebody else doesn't. But, the reality is that Joe Biden is already the president, as I said earlier, and that, he is already getting on with the job of being president. And you can't really claim that someone's not up to it when they're actually doing the job, and the country is is safe. Let me show this clip and then we can talk more.
Breaking news coming into CNN. A source familiar with Virginia Senator Mark Warner's thinking tells me that the private meeting that he was trying to organize for tomorrow with other Democratic senators to discuss a path forward as it pertains to Biden and his campaign, that's no longer happening. The source tells me the purpose of this private meeting with other Senate Democrats tomorrow was to get them on the same page about the future of President Joe Biden's candidacy. But after it leaked out to several media outlets, including CNN, it was scrapped.
Yeah, I mean, they're all getting pretty good at dealing with this now. I mean, Karine Jean-Pierre has been doing some really great work at in the press office and dealing with these stupid questions from the press. It's that people are just simply ageist and they cannot get over this notion that Joe Biden is worse than Trump because he's aging gracefully, or whereas Trump is just a disaster. It's like I cannot see how you can equate one with the other. These are two completely different individuals from completely different places with completely different life history and experience. And Joe Biden in this moment, as he has proved time and time again, is the man for this election. And we're going to have to deal with a whole lot more mutiny between now and November, aren't we?
Yeah. And the interesting thing is going to be watch how it plays out with some of these people like Warner and others, some of the actors we talked about.
Yeah.
So I think there's three categories of people here post-debate. One was the fact that who said, we're sticking with Biden. He's our guy. He's the nominee. We think he had a bad night. And, we think he's old, but we think he's the best guy. Okay, that's one category of people, clearly. Then you have category two of the people who did it for a week, just said, okay, because they thought, I'm going to join this chorus of people and maybe Joe will step aside voluntarily because there's this overwhelming groundswell of people. That week is now over. Okay, that ended this weekend. So I think, and some of those have said, okay, now that Biden has decided he's not going to step aside, we're coming back into the fold. We're back on board, and we're not going to do this anymore. That's category two. Then you have category three. This is going to be the interesting category to watch. People who won't stop. Like Bill Crystal posted this morning that this is Biden's Pickett's charge and at Gettysburg, and he's just saddling everybody up and charging into certain death. So the people who aren't going to stop, who are just going to continue this, are really only going to help Trump at some point.
Yeah.
And then the question is going to be, what is going to happen to them long term? Are they going to keep their media gigs? Are they going to get reelected? I mean, you take a guy like Adam Frisch, who's running for Lauren Boebert's old seat. He's a former Republican running as a Democrat now, and he's called for Biden to step down. And the question is, how is he going to win if he just pissed off half of the Democrats in his district? So that's going to be the other interesting thing is these people who won't stop, what's going to happen to them long term?
And think about how useful their energies could be if they were actually supporting Joe Biden, saying all the right things, getting behind him. That's what's so frustrating about this, is that it's a total waste. It's not going to change the trajectory of this election. If anything, it's just going to, cause more turbulence than is necessary.
Yeah. I mean, if you think that that's going to work to persuade him to get out, that's why I say I think that I put that in a different category because they thought that maybe it would work. It didn't work. But at some point when you realize it doesn't work, you need to back off and get back on board,
Finally, let's talk about RFK Jr. because I think, was it you or Asin posted, you think Biden's having a bad news cycle? RFK Jr. is on Fox answering questions about a photo of him with what appears to be... Let's take a look.
This Vanity Fair story, I want to give you an opportunity to address it, that has a picture of you holding up what looks like a carcass of a dog and pretending to take a bite out of it. It's getting a lot of attention. So I want to ask you if you want to explain that photo. Is that a cheap fake? Is that a real photo? What was going on there?
Now, that is a real photo. is of me at a campfire in Patagonia on the Filipkowski River eating a goat, which is what we eat down there. Vanity Fair said that they talked to veterinarians who assured them that it was a dog, that they had meta-analysis that showed that it was in Korea and that it was in Korea of me eating a dog, and that statement is emblematic of the entire article, of the lack of sort of journalistic standards throughout that article.
Okay. I'm glad we gave you the opportunity to address that. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
I mean, this is where it's at with this guy now. Is it a goat? Is it a dog? Was it delicious? I mean, come on.
It's funny because when I saw that picture when it first came out, I thought the first thing that sprung to my mind was the last time I've seen that, where it was like an entire carcass of an animal, like opened up and
split, yeah,
and filleted a certain way or presented a certain, was in Patagonia. Like when I was in Patagonia, they display those in like the windows of restaurants.
Yeah.
So
well,
it's like,
I think I saw the same thing in Costco. So, you know, that's how far I travel for some rotisserie.
Like, I haven't seen that since Argentina, you know, and as it turns out, that's his story, you know, which is it was in Patagonia. But look, here's the bottom line. Like if you're on TV and you're having to defend yourself that, no, I ate a goat, not a dog, running for president, you know, you're in trouble. And this is just a weird guy. It's just one weird story after another with this guy. And
I wish he'd just get out of the race now, though. It's so frustrating that he's taking up airtime when, you know, there's something as important as the fall of U.S. democracy, not to mention climate change, of course. There was a story out the other day that said that we've, for the last 12 months, have now gone past that, 1.5 degrees of warming. So, you know, the Paris Climate Accord benchmark has been superseded. You know, these are really important, serious issues for the planet. And this is the stuff we should be talking about. I don't hear anything about it on the mainstream media. All I hear is, oh, Joe Biden, you know, stood still for 7 seconds. That must mean that he's a corpse. And it's like, no, we can do better than that. And, you know, hopefully we are, Ron. Hopefully we are.
Right.
Listen, we have to finish, but it's been great to chat today. And I'll be back in the US when we have this conversation next week. I'm looking forward to that and feeling a little closer to my dear friend in the little box over there.
That's it.
Okay. Thanks, Ron. If you want to download the audio podcast, you can do that later tonight. Check out our advertisers and supporters there down in the description below. Don't forget to share and comment, all the usual stuff as you do. And we'll see you next week on Uncovered.